All right. Good morning, Hester students. We're going to try a Friday live drawing lesson. We may do different projects besides just drawing, but we're going to give it a go for today. If you end up joining us in the next minute or two live, please turn off your microphone to make sure that it doesn't disrupt service. This meeting is being recorded, and I will post a video link for those of you who can't catch it live. So today's daily drawing challenge is draw something from nature, and you can draw anything, but today's lesson is going to be on birds and butterflies. So we're going to start with a bird. Here's this picture that I found in my magazine stash of this crazy looking bird. I have no idea what kind of bird it is, but we're going to go ahead and draw him. So I'm going to try to angle this the best that I can. And hopefully you'll get some valuable drawing tips out of this. See if we can make this a little bit better. There's always a learning curve. All right, hopefully you can see that pretty well. I know it's at a little bit of a weird angle, but trying to do this through Google Meet, and so the other devices don't work as well. All right, so when I draw, I always start with something that stands out to my brain. It's not always going to be the same thing for the same person, but to me, this beak shape stands out in my brain. So I'm going to decide where on my page I want it, and I want it further to the right so I have room to do all these cool hair feathers. But I also want to make sure I leave enough room for those. So when I'm drawing this, I'm looking at the shape here while I'm making the marks on my page. And you'll notice I'm drawing in really light, sketchy marks. And I'm going to kind of darken the lines as I'm committed to them. So then I'm going to move out from that shape, and I want to kind of get in the shape of this guy's body down here. So it kind of comes down and curves in, and then he's got some forehead, but it starts here. I don't know if you'd call it forehead, but yeah, I don't know. And then he's got his big eyeball part over here. So looks like this part is not feathered. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. If I'm looking, there's more of like a little peak here where the feathers come down over here. I'm going to kind of go in and fix that. And I'm going to kind of make some adjustments here. If I'm looking from where his beak ends, there's like some feathers kind of go back. And this comes here. So before I erase anything, I am going to, I wasn't drawing in the video frame. Sorry, guys. Before I erase anything, I wanted to make sure that I got the shape that I wanted. I'm going to go ahead now, and after I've gotten it the shape that I want, I can go in and make some small adjustments with my eraser. I think one of the biggest challenges that students give themselves is they start erasing right away, and they don't have anything to reference. So if you leave the incorrect mark there, it gives you something to go against. This eyeball's pretty circular. I'm going to add that in there. And then he's got a lot of different parts of the eye. So he's got the eyeball shape. But this outer ring, that's like his eyelid. Then he's got the red ring, the iris. And then he's got the black pupil. So I'm going to go ahead and get these guys in here. So this would be his eyeball. And so this is the eyelid. And there's a little bit deep shadow over here. That's not on the other side. And then the pupil is pretty big. So this is where it's challenging, because sometimes we try to have our brain overlap or override what our eyeball is seeing. So I'm going to go ahead I'm going to put that darkness in there right away so that I don't forget. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to give a little shadow there. Now, when I draw, I go back and forth a lot. So I don't full on shade anything as I go. I want to make sure that everything is kind of how I want it first before I start committing to any kind of drawing or shading. And so it's really important to get those kind of key shapes in there first. When you're doing observational drawing, there's two fields. There's hyper-realistic drawing, and those artists are going for 100% exact photographic copy. When I tend to draw, even when I'm going for realism, I'm going for the general effect, not necessarily counting out each feather. I'm trying to create the effect of those feathers. I'm trying to look for and capture kind of how some of these guys overlap. And I'm looking for creating that main effect, but I'm not looking for it to be 100% exactly the same. And so every artist takes on different. I realize that this angle that I set up at my arm is going to be blocking some of this. So I'll try to move it out. Lesson for next time. Rearrange a different way. So I'm starting to get those nice feathers in there. So I'm going to move on and capture some of these smaller guys back here. So we definitely have some feathers poking out this way. Got some, and you'll notice that I'm still drawing really lightly, and I'm drawing actually a little bit darker than I normally would because I want you to be able to see it. And I'm guessing that some of this is going to be a little bit tricky at this point, and I'm paying attention. The size gets a little bit bigger, and then his back comes up at an angle, and this starts to get blurrier, so we're not really seeing the definition of those exact feathers. And then he's got this clear delineation here where he's got these fluffy chest feathers. And then he's got these darker ones where they are different colors. So I want to kind of capture in where some of my color shifts are, because there's these light feathers mixed in here with the dark guys. So I'm going to kind of get that. I got that. He's got some wrinkles in this little skin here. We got some good texture under this eye. Back of this beak. He's got this really dark where it like bends up and down. So we want to get that in there. It's got some very soft featheries coming down. And then this chest isn't super, you know, it's not a straight line because it's very feathery. Let's see. So now I look at this beak, the top beak should definitely overlap. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to clean up. All right. So a lot of students indicated in the survey when we did the origami that they wanted to do some painting. And so I thought I would try to bring you some painting in kind of a way that most students can access it. So now that I've got my main details in here, and I'll bring these in a little bit closer. We got this guy. Get this guy. I'll try to get the glare out of there. Okay. So we've got the main details down. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a painting. So what I have is I have just a normal plate, and that's going to be my mixing palette. And I have some ground turmeric. It's just a seasoning. It might be in your cabinets. And I'm going to put a little bit of that on the plate. And I've got a cup, which is just a recycled container, and some brushes with some water in it. And these aren't even really good brushes because obviously those are at school. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the turmeric and you're going to mix it to different consistencies. So you want some really light with adding just a little bit. So I'm not making like a big soup. And I want the paint to kind of go ahead and start to dilute in there. So I'm just scooping out brushfuls of water. And I'm going to mix up some different consistencies. And this is going to be my paint that I'm going to use. Welcome, Lily Beth. So what I'm doing here is I'm mixing up my paint, but I'm using some non-traditional materials that you may have at home. And I'm diluting the turmeric, which is a spice, to different consistencies. And then I'm going to go ahead and start to apply those to my painting. There are different spices. You could use chili powder would work, ginger would work. You want something with a deep color. And you're going to have to kind of experiment. Some are going to work better than others. I don't really have a good pointy brush. Maybe this guy is my best one that I have here. All right. I'm going to start with some lighter areas. So this guy here, if I'm looking comparatively, the color, it's pretty light around there. So I'm going to start by putting in a little bit of that. I'm going to go into one of my slightly darker colors so that I can pull in a little bit of the darks here. Good morning, Estefania.
Hello.
If you want to go ahead and mute your microphone to make sure that everyone can see. And here, what I did was I started with a bird drawing. So I had my photo reference here and I sketched out my main lines of him. And we kind of went through some techniques for when we're drawing to kind of put in like some key points before we start putting in the details. And I know that's something that you do when you draw. And now we're going in, this is some turmeric created paint. I know, Estefania, you did a coffee drawing for a drawing challenge earlier this week. You were actually the only one that took on that challenge. I don't know if it was too weird or if maybe people have just been a little bit too busy. But I'm going in and I'm darkening the darker areas with my more concentrated mixtures, and I'm letting my lighter areas be light. The nice thing about this is it is delicious smelling. It's always great when your art smells good. Well, his chest is much lighter, so I'm going to just put in some little wisps of that. Then I'm going to pull in some of my darker. Now, turmeric is kind of a yellow-orange color, so you're not going to get like a blackish dark with this. If you want a darker one, you could do the coffee, and you will be able to build up to a darker value there. It is sometimes trickier working with a light color because there's just a there's a lower variety, a range of values that you can achieve. So I'm coming in, mixing in these top guys. Put a nice concentrated mix here, get that starting to dilute. I'm going to add that. I don't have a good pointy brush home with me. Just surprising. You'd think that I would, but I have stuff spread out all over. So I'm just going back to my photo and I'm looking where some of those darker values are. And I'm just putting wisps of that in there. I'm going to come back to some of my lighter tones, and I'm going to use almost pure water. And I'm going to put just a little whisper of color in some of those spots. I want to come in with some of this more concentrated mixture. Darken this up. Darken this up. And you can always let it dry and come back in with additional layers. That will be another way to bulk up when you're working with a lighter tinted color. And you'll notice that when I'm painting with a single value, I'm not really ever washing my brush, but I'm just changing the amount of water that I'm using. If you were working with multiple colors, you would definitely need to make sure that you're washing your brush in between different colors there. I think that I'm actually going to go ahead. I've got some chili powder here. I think I'm going to try mixing it up a little bit darker to blend in there. Take some water. Kind of a curve to this plate, so let's see how this works. I love that spice. You have a plastic egg carton, depending on, or foam. Sometimes those are good when you're mixing up different values too, because you can keep them a little bit more separated. Where my plate has a little bit of a curve, so it makes it a little bit trickier. It needs a little bit of time for the color to kind of leach in to your paint mixture. But I am going to take that and kind of darken some of my really dark areas. And I'm always looking back at my photo. One of the skills that we've worked really hard over the last year in art class is to make sure that when we're observing, we're actually using our eyeballs. So I know you can't see my eyes in this video here, but I'm constantly, the picture's right next to it. I'm not just like looking at it once and finishing my whole painting. I'm going back and back and back and back and forth constantly, because unless you have like some savant skill to memorize something after glancing at it once, you need to go back and look at it. Your brain is just focusing on the creation and it can't memorize every little detail here. That is pretty cool. I think I'm going to use some of this guy for his eyeball color. This also isn't the best painting paper that I'm using, but this is quarantine, so we're using what we have available to us. I'm pretty happy with this guy. It's not super crazy realistic here in terms of I'm not capturing every little feather. Watercolor painting, which this is closest to, is pretty typical that you're capturing the effect. There are some watercolor artists that go in to way more detail here. But I'm pretty happy with this. Okay, give them a little bit more there. And I'm okay that I can see the pencil lightly. So there we go. There's artwork number 1, our bird. So this could totally count for your drawing something from nature. Now we're going to move on to a butterfly drawing. This one I think I'm going to use colored pencils. So I happen to have this old calendar here. And I want to find something with an interesting pattern. I kind of like that guy. Ooh, that one's fun. I think I like this one. So I'll give you an up close. Here's what we are drawing with. Right. Now, the nice thing for you guys is even if you may not have a physical picture in front of you, you do have your computer, which you can draw from. I'm recording on my computer, so I can't draw from it at the same time. I suppose I probably could, but it would complicate things. So again, just like when I started my drawing with the bird, I'm going to start with something that resonates with my brain that's kind of key. And to me, that stands out is his little body here. And so I think what happens a lot of times with butterfly drawings that I've seen students do is that they always want to draw them in a particular position that they accustom or they associate with butterflies, and that's having both wings open. And they're not always like that. So this guy is sitting on something. So we've got this. And he's got one big old giant eye here. And it's kind of a kidney bean shape. We've got that there. And then I want to start to put in the wing structure. So sometimes what I do is I go to my drawing and I make the motion over and over. That's at that angle. So that way, when I come in here, it helps me to capture that. It's kind of like a muscle memory trick. It's not 100% necessary. So this was, I don't know if that's, I think that's the back of his body. I don't think that's part of his wing here. So I'm going to find this mark here. And it comes out past his body. It curves up. It curves out again. And then it comes to this cool point. And then it curves up here and it goes in here. And now what I'm finding is that I think I did this proportion better. But this wing under way too small. So that's why I'm not committing to putting any details until I feel like I've gotten that key shape in there. I'm going to go in and I'm going to rework that. So I feel pretty good about this wing shape. So I'm going to move on to the next guy. Starts from behind him. Probably about there. And I'm going to have to turn this a little bit. I know that's kind of blocking it from you. I'm sorry. And then I'm going to come in here and it curves inward and it curves probably actually a little bit more this way because it meets a little bit past the halfway mark of his wing there. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to erase some of the lines that I feel unhappy with. And I've got the key shape of my butterfly in here. And you may be like, whoa, Ms. Zill, that's not looking very butterfly-y. Well, it's not yet because he doesn't have any details. So I think another common thing that happens with students is that they tend to judge their drawings before they have enough information. I notice it a lot, especially with portraits. So when students draw portraits, they don't have any eyeballs in there. And then they're like, I can't stand this. Well, a portrait without eyeballs looks like a zombie, so it's never going to look right. I've got this leg and I've got this leg, and then there's another little leg that comes in and crosses from here, and it crosses to the behind. So now I'm going to follow this guy, and this leg is actually coming up and down. It's a little bit tricky to see. And then I've got this guy coming out from more of his abdomen. And then it comes down. This guy's much longer. We've got one coming out. right from this spot here, and it's going up first. And then it's coming down. And again, this is just pencil at this point, so nothing's set in stone. So if you need to make some adjustments, that's what this time when you're sketching is for. It comes down pretty far there. So got those key things in. We see the other eye coming out from behind there. You only see part of it. So another thing that happens a lot with drawings with students is that they want to draw two eyes because they know that they have two eyes, and they do, but we're only seeing part of it. So this is where you have to not let your observation skills be overridden by your brain and your knowledge of the creatures or whatever you're drawing, the subject matter. So we've got that pretty good. And now I'm going to start to put in some of these key veins in here. So this starts and it goes all the way up the edge, the butterfly. Our next key piece comes in here and it's connecting this guy. So this vein curls up to that wing. Try to put that at a better angle for you. And then we've got this really cool area up here. So I'm going to actually start with here. I'm going to take and I'm going to extend these shapes over and down. There's no one way to figure out which order you should draw things in. The choices that I make may not be the choices that you would make. And that's totally cool because we have different brains. And so different shapes are going to resonate in our brains differently. And then this guy here is pretty dark. And then there's another little row here that's light. And in this guy, we're going to go get this really cool, I think it's called an eye, right? Where it looks like an eye and it's one of their natural defense mechanisms. So there's a light end, but there's a dark vein in here, and then this whole thing gets dark. And then the dark comes in and out. This comes in. These are all like little ridges here. And so we've got this crucial vein here that comes up and along. Ooh, that's a bad eraser. See how it like activated that mark there? No fun. I've noticed a lot of students doing digital drawings, which is awesome. If you have a tablet, there are some drawing sites on the Chromebook. I find that when I'm using a mouse, I just can't do it. It stresses me out. So I'm just not as good with that. And then these have these really beautiful, they're like little horn shapes coming in. So a little guy here, and this is all dark around it. I don't want to do too much shading because I am going to come in here with some colored pencils, but I want to give myself enough information so that my brain doesn't get confused later on. Here, I'm going to start at the end because this kind of resonates with my brain. These are almost a little bit heart-shaped. Now we've got this. Comes in here, up the center, creates this segment, which creates this segment, which creates this segment. This one's a little more detached. Got this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. So I think I actually made these guys too high. So I'm going to go ahead and move them. And then I'm going to erase. Again, that tip that I've talked about a couple times already. Move it to where you want it, where you think it looks right before you go back and erase, because it gives you kind of that comparison point there. So I'm feeling pretty good about most of my details here. A little vein coming through here. And I feel like this actually is up a little bit. So I feel like I have my key points in there. So now I'm going to move on to grabbing my color pencils. Now this, I did happen to have one of my nicer sets. I can figure out where I set them. I think they're upstairs. Give me one moment. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry about that. I forgot I was using them upstairs. This is a nicer set. This is Blick Studio. Similar to the Prismacolor brand, which is pretty much like the Premier Color pencil. Regular old Crayola color pencils will work, any brand, but these, you'll notice the lead is a little bit wider. The pencils are a little bit wider than a normal pencil, and the lead's just wider. Like if you compare, I don't know if you can see that, like the pencil lead is skinnier than the colored pencil lead. Hand sharpeners are best for colored pencils. And then you want to go in with multiple colors. So I'm never going to go in with only the color that I see there. And what I like to do is hold a bunch of the colored pencil colors that I'm going to be using in my hand. And then reminds me to make sure that I'm blending. So let's see. I want to start at the back of the wing here. I don't know if this is at a... I feel like that looks upside down to you guys. I don't know. I'm having a hard time because it's at a weird angle to me. So I hope this makes sense. After I go back and review this video, we'll definitely have some grounds to evaluate and make some improvements. So I often like to start by putting down a base layer. What's really important with colored pencils is that you don't get dark too fast. And I'm actually noticing that I missed some of these lighter areas here. It's 3 little sections. I'm going to kind of re-darken those so that I can kind of follow. You always want to color in the direction of your shape. So whatever makes sense. So I'm going to color in the length of this wing. And I'm not using the very point of the color pencil unless I'm doing some delicate work. Because I find that it leaves too strong of a color pencil mark. And I don't like that. I think then actually this goes over to here. There are another ridge that I'm missing. Should be here. So I'm going to darken the pencil a little bit there. I'm going to kind of fill that in. So I've got a base coat of that, but I want to think about color as an art, right? And so by layering different colors, you're going to open yourself up to just a better range of colors. And they're not going to be so flat. So like the painting in your house on your walls, that's a flat color. It's a single color. But your subject matter, it's not going to really come alive. And so you're going to use different colors layered in there. I'm kind of using this purple to build up some of my darker areas. Sometimes I go in and I do it's called underpainting, where you put in some of those dark shadows first and I layer. Honestly, I just kind of let the moment kind of tell me what to do. There's no like one method. If you search YouTube, you'll find millions of artists that will do time lapse, and they're really beautiful color pencil artists. Who do this for a career. And they're all going to use slightly different techniques. You can see I'm not pressing hard ever at one point, but I'm starting to build up my color. And it's just kind of got this rich, kind of luscious color. And if it starts to look too much of any one color, like a couple spots I started to get a little bit too green, you take the opposite color from the color wheel. So the opposite of green is red. And I can layer a little bit of red and it will neutralize or kind of offset the green there. And I can start to fill that in. I'm going to come in with some yellowish and I'm going to start to refine the end of this wing. I think if I turn my seat, I can color so that you guys can see more. Again, I'm starting with a light layer, coloring in the directions. So when the wing curves, and put that in there. And this is a really translucent kind of area. Translucent means it's a little bit see-through. But even though I've already got a light color, I really want to come in and emphasize very gently some of those areas where the white gets a little bit lighter. And you may not see those very subtle shifts until you get the background in there. And with color pencil, I mean, some artists choose to color in the whole thing. Some just do parts. Going in lightly here. But I love colored pencil. But it's not something that you can rush. So a lot of times what I see with students is they do a really beautiful job in a small area. And then they start to get a little bit bored and they start to rush. And then they get these scribble color marks where they press really hard. It just breaks my heart every time, because that is going to be what the audience is going to see more clearly than they're going to see that nice, careful work. So a lot of times an artwork is made or broken by those final marks that you put on it. So if you like lose steam and try to rush all at the end, sometimes you can take a really beautiful artwork and turn it to a little bit of grossness. A little vein in here, and then it gets a little bit here. So I am going to take a little bit of purple, which is opposite yellow, because there's this dark shadow. See if I can move it in closer so you guys can better see in here. And so if I take the opposite of a color, in this case, I've got a lot of yellow and orange. I go in with some purple, it's going to give it that dark, almost vomity color. Kind of gross, but and then you can see where the light is glistening. The wing gets drastically lighter all of a sudden in here. So I'm going to go in and make that really light area. And I want to actually, because I had too many scribble marks, I want to clean up some of this because it's such a thin or a light area of the butterfly here. If I don't erase those marks first, they're going to show through my color pencil work. So I'm starting with that base layer. And now I'm going to come in with my other colors. And I'm going to start to layer. And I'm going to start to accentuate the parts that need slightly different colors. So like this guy is darker along this little spine here. So I'm going to go in with that darker yellow. I'm going to soften it. And I'm just picking up those little hints and things. I'm going to come back in and I'm going to work in these veins. It's really hard to work with a dull pencil pencil. So I hope that you have a pencil sharpener at home if you're working. This we get a really dark area in here. I get this dark spine of the wing in there because I keep getting a little bit disoriented in the edging here. Even if you're working digitally, you can be layering different colors and playing with the opacity. Opacity is how see-through it is. Because if something's opaque, it's not see-through. So if you lower the opacity, it's partially see-through. So sometimes it's a really good idea to kind of layer in some different colors. Because even in digital artwork, you don't want anything to look flat. Again, my reference would be like to your wall, you know, where that is a solid color. This is really starting to turn out exciting. All right, this section of the wing here is really fuzzy. So I'm going to start with my lightest color. I'm going to put down a little layer in there. And this layer at the end. I'm going to come in with my darker yellow. And I'm going to come in with a little bit of the brown, and I'm going to kind of create like this fuzziness along here. It's not a crisp. I kind of let it be a little bit fuzzy there. The moral of the story, though, with your drawing is that you can feel free to take artistic license, but it is always best if you want something to look a particular way, to look like something recognizable, is to start with that close observation and get those key details in there before you really start committing your forces to going in and adding your colors. So you'll notice like I got the whole butterfly sketched out before I really started to come in with any color pencil to see. And I am going to have to go in a few minutes because I've got my daily homeroom meeting coming up here, but I wanted to just give you guys a little bit something that you could expand on. So you can go ahead and you can try the painting. If you have actual paints, you know, there's nothing wrong with you using actual paints if you want to create a painting. But I just wanted to show you some tips. I think I'm going to continue to work on this guy this afternoon. Hopefully I'll get some of you guys checking in with me who have questions from art class. But I can draw while I'm waiting for that. Yeah, my grades up to date yesterday, so. A little bit more flexibility today. The other thing that you want to do is if you get a particular color that repeats in your drawing, you can tell I'm starting to rush a little bit, feeling the pressure of the time here. And so you're starting to see some of my pencil strokes, which I'm going to have to go back in there and kind of soften out. Is that you want to kind of pay attention to your recipe. How did you get a certain color? You know, what color did you put down first? What did you put down second? What did you put down third? And even if you don't know the order, what colors did you use? It will kind of keep some nice consistencies for you. And then with color pencil, when you're building up to a deeper color, you always want to do it slowly because you will hit a point where your surface will become what's called burnished. And that's where it's completely coated with the colored pencil. And the paper eventually will stop taking more colored pencil. It has to grip onto the paper there. And if it can't grip on there, then it's not going to stick. So if you go and you press too hard, too fast, you're going to find that you're going to be trapped with however you made that guy. And then, you know what I didn't realize is he's really furry down here. So definitely want to go in and create some of those little hairs. And for some detail work like that, you want to make sure your pencils are still pretty sharp. Otherwise, they're going to turn out looking goofy. Got this really dark edge back there, but then it's followed by a little whisper of lightness. And then it gets back to this deep darkness. I think that's about all I have time for today. I will come back in and work a little bit more and give you some updates. But you can kind of see what happens when you start to layer your colors and you just get some really beautifulness going on. You can change your colors. Let's see. Ooh, gotta move it this way. So there we have that. So I've got that one little section of the wing done, and you can see it took me a little bit of time. Colored pencil is a patient artwork. You're not feeling patient? try a painting. It's a little bit quicker. Oops, try to get this in a good frame here. Actually, you know what? Yeah, actually come back in here. And the painting's gonna be a little bit quicker. And I will pull back out my reference here. So anyway, leave me some feedback and let me know if you enjoy this type of lesson for Fridays. Ooh, we got some like craziness going on outside my house. All sorts of emergency lights and whatnot. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and let me know if you enjoyed that. Let me also know like if there's something in particular you want to learn how to draw, or a particular art material that you want to learn how to use, even if it's not something that everyone has at home. I'd be happy to do my best to show you those things, and we can all make art together. Thanks so much. You guys have a great day.